The assumption is the moment I am able to get the demand, the supply will meet the demand. That means the manufacturing, the transportation, sorting, packing is all in such way that this demand can be satisfied. The assumption is that the packaging and transportation can be dovetailed to meet the requirements of the demand. We know that many times there's a bulk packing and then there's a retail packing. Now you are saying that this packaging or retail packaging will be done at a far off location and dispatched to the retail part. Let's accept that it is possible. Is there enough science gone inside to say that actually we have increased the effectiveness of the supply chain? The reason why this demand had come up, we all know, is because all the products were very heavily discounted. The initial logic was that since we are getting rid of the retail part, the rental part and the personnel part, etc., the cost is very low or much lower. The assumption is right that the retail, rentals, etc. cost a lot of money, and we are getting rid of that stage. This is what Dell had done, right? And this would be effective. But then why is it for so much of time all these people are only making losses? There is something going wrong. Just to make sure that the perceived cost saving translated into discounts, these people had to discount very heavily. So the initial assumption that we are doing the retailing activity better than the store turned out to be a myth. And just to prove that this was substantially cheaper, sometimes the discounts made them bleed. That means the cost of sale was less than the cost of procurement. Anyway, very soon this can be covered because this is a mistake. So now, when the discounts became lesser, the competition came back, because now these companies were not allowed to sell at loss. What is the second aspect? The response time. The response time. So now, to get the edge, a quick response was promised. We will deliver in a day. We will deliver 2 days. Now you have made a promise, but has your supply chain developed capabilities to get to this response with less costs? These are the mistakes being committed by people who actually think that by promising you're getting a competitive advantage. The supply chains do better because within the supply chain you are able to transport and increase the response time with low cost. So all these one-day deliveries were done at extremely high costs. And when the losses mounted further, people started charging you for this delivery. Please go back to what we were saying. We said the retailing was expensive. So these fellows got rid of retailing and they said we will have this marketplace on the net and then we'll supply cheaper. Some of the assumptions did not work out. So to get the faith of the customers, they discounted. When that went out, they said we will deliver faster. Another activity of a supply chain which they said that we will do better, promise, but for that again the cost went through the roof. So finally we started paying for deliveries also. What happened? This is a 7-day delivery time, but if you want it in 2 days, you pay this price. Now, are these retailers actually increasing any one of these activities? Are they doing it better? If they are not doing it better, there is no way the supply chain can become effective. And that's what we are seeing. Billions have been put inside the supply chains, and they expect it to turn the corner, and when they turn the corner, they will make windfall. But the assumption is that all these activities of the supply chain will be done much better. On the contrary, the reason why these supply chains did not make money was the activities in themselves did not improve. So now what we are left with is the response time. So I go to a website, the fellow says, I will give you this particular shirt in 4 days' time. Another website says, I'll give you the same shirt in 2 days' time. How is it that the same shirt is taking 4 days from one retailer and 2 days from another retailer? And both these retailers are virtual. This response time is nothing but where the goods are stored. The corner store does not die down because it has this ability of the response time. Now, for increasing the response time, and if the location of the inventory is far off from the consumption point, you need to take it through air and pay more for it. Supply chain activities have to be constantly worked upon. Where to locate the inventory? Because if response time becomes your USP, or is the only dimension on which two retailers are fighting, then you better well have good response time. The downside of having good response time is maybe you land up carrying extra inventory, which again harms you. So how is it that you're going to make sure that your availability is increasing while keeping the inventory low? Does this depend only on your ability to transport quickly? No, this is a combination of you using the communication part and the storage part coupled with the transportation part that will give you a better response time. So now, if there is a company which is able to do these 2-3 things for a retail company, you are in the supply chain. If you just say that I am extremely good in local distribution, I will charge you X amount per box, you may be given the activity, but you are not making the supply chain competitive. But then if you go and say, listen, you plug me into a supply chain information system, I will tell you how much of inventory to maintain at my end, which I will then distribute based on the orders I get. I will make sure that you never have a stock out. Now, what do you mean by stock out? Stock out means lost sales. But that's just not it. This sale is the one that gave you the profit. So stock out has got a lot of damaging effect. Suppose I come to you, want to buy 4 shirts. You don't have one. I don't buy the rest 3. What is getting registered as stock out has got much more magnified damaging effect on your business than loss of 1 shirt. So the moment I promise that I will process the information, I need to be in your information highway. I will make sure that I will store your goods at a place where the response time is the maximum. That means I will distribute to. I am now finding myself very competitive and I am improving the performance of a supply chain. I will be able to enter a supply chain. However, what was earlier a fragmented part, one agency distributed, one agency stored, one agency has collected the order. Now what I am doing is, I am doing 2 to 3 things myself. But by doing that, I am meeting one great requirement of the market, which is called the response time. I am reducing the time to satisfy the demand while keeping inventory is low. Supply chains and improvement in supply chains and development of supply chains are primarily based on how these 9 activities are done. And this is how leads supply chain to take various shapes and forms. Modern supply chains, the ones used or the ones that are seen in electronic industry or an automobile industry, or for that matter a garment industry, have different forms. The most easily explained and in detailed analysis is done of a automobile supply chain. This supply chain, in trying to achieve its efficiency, has taken a new form. There, the importance of a supplier is based on multiple factors. And depending on the importance, it is tiered. What happened was, in trying to make the supply chain effective, that means if they had to keep the cost of operations minimum, they had to find a new way of structuring themselves. And the automobile supply chains did not structure themselves only in terms of the physical product and the size. They also structured themselves at the back end in financial part. They reduced risks of each other. They used or shared technology. But the prime purpose was how to make sure that we increase the competitiveness of the supply chain that we had built. So when in old times the manufacturer did all the activities of making a car, it also made lots of components, subcomponents, assemblies, and in case a specialty bolt was required, it made that bolt in-house. To do all this, a fair amount of managerial attention and money was spent on.